I think there has been a lot of disruption in the supply chain. So the social media, which drives a lot of the opinions in the marketplace, the internationalization of the globalization of the marketplace means that there are more and more consumers that are coming in, which may have different sensibilities. And then I think the pace of change has become faster and faster. So these all create the turbulences and the changes that we see. I don't know if it's going to be faster and faster, but certainly it will be less predictable. Okay. I think in the past there have been seasonalities, and there are some limited amount of influences and inputs, and I see that dispersing, and that there are more and more inputs that we need to take into consideration.
I do agree, as you know, like short cycle product is very hard to forecast, and that's the point with us. So we decided to get the fast fashion reactivity, and so we are able to produce within, I would say, like 3 to 4 months, with around 2 months for replenishment, sometimes faster. So this way we managed to put, always new product, like 25, I think it's 25 products per week in store. So this way, customers feels like they have new product, and we keep the desirability, like attractiveness of our brands, and that's the key point for us.
I think there is not one business model fits all, and what is very exciting about fashion is that we can see different companies with very different business model having success. There is room for different business model. When we go to a company like Zara or H&M, one of the success of the fast fashion is to be able to mix basic with fashion products, and basics are 1/3 of the sales, but 2/3 of the margin of the company, which means the fast fashion models are used to drive people into the stores, but at the end they make more money with the white t-shirts and the blue polos. So that's very interesting, because the image stays about the fast fashion things, but the basics are most of the margin. And when you look to H&M, they even increase that logic one step further with the capsule collection, like Karl Lagerfeld for H&M, which are a way of making advertising. Is the high fashion, if I can say, défilé of company like H&M. And the business model is the fact that they are hybrids. They do both basics with a slow production process, and they do fast fashion at the same time. So they got to a much more elaborate model than just fast fashion.
The entire production supply chain is not geared for these types of fast production. There's a lot of risk, especially with materials that have long lead times, yarn-dyed materials, more exotic materials that needs time to manufacture. And so do you then adjust your designs to satisfy that, or do you compromise your design to satisfy those types of lead time requirements? So it's a difficult choice. But on the other hand, I probably don't see any other way other than to move faster, to respond to these the capabilities of a lot of fast fashion brands who are able to do that day in, day out. When I worked for Donna Karan in New York in the 90s, 65% of the runway never made it to production, because it was just all experiments. It was all branding exercises, as opposed to things that really they were expecting to sell. And so if you have that, then how do you, and they don't know which are the winners and what the reaction will be after the runway show, because all the editors are there deciding what shade of green that they like. So it's risky, right?
We don't have any catwalk show, but we manage to have what people want and not what people need. So it's kind of way to having this type of new concept. And I like the idea. I think it's François Pinault that said that the catwalk show is part of the design process, because once again it creates desirability. So that's the interesting point, and this is the key of our business model.
The speed is very important. The time to market is very important. And what is unsold or what is what the demand which is not served costs a lot more to most of the company than what they would win by adding, by reducing the cost by 5%. So there is something strange in the fashion world, which is we count what is not important very precisely, and we don't put enough attention to what makes the profit.
We have to spend more time on trends, on analysis about trends instead of forecast. So I do agree, but then you have to organize your supply chains to get flexibility and just to be agile, so that you can make the trends be in your store. So that's the main thing. The communication is the key. I mean, internally and also with externally trends, for example. And it's also true that the buyers, what they were doing like 20 years ago, has nothing to do with what is a buyer today, which is a merchandiser with assortment planning, merchandise planning. So it's a new job and very tough job, I think. And it's true that if you want to be agile, you have to get the right solution, right tools, right software, whatever you want, but you need to be reactive.
There is a need for technology, which is if the industry doesn't move to a digital world, it will never work. And digital means from the beginning to the end of the chain. And if you don't have industrial tools that are connected to the internet, that you cannot go from what you want to do to how do you produce all this in real time, you have no solution.
In that sense, the execution, the tactic, is what the key to success is, not the strategy. If you get my meaning, that really is excellence in execution, which is what you do in supply chain, what you do in manufacturing. That was the key change.
What we focus on is communication between design and production team, including the buying team. So this is a big deal. Once again, communication. So we have tools, but it's a kind of, I mean, as you know, we like 8 years ago, we're just a small company. Now we are a group. And so it's difficult to focus on and make people think in the same time. So, communication.
A few years ago, we fell in love with Lean, thinking some years ago that it was a Toyota stuff of the 50s, where people would think only about production. And we saw that it could be adapted to many industries, especially fashion. So the first, I don't know how familiar most of you are with the Lean methodologies, but the first criteria in Lean is you count gray periods and red periods. Gray periods is when you do something useful for the business, and red period is when it's unuseful. The question is to take the decision. If you are in the position where you suffer from delays that you cannot control, that's when it hurts. But in some time, it's a good thing, and Zara shows it, and H&M shows it, to take a few months to do things because you can do them cheaper without hurting your business. So sometimes taking your time is not a bad decision, but it has to be a decision. It's not something where you don't have any choice and you have to go for it.
It's got to be things about data analysis and everything. And really focusing on the supply chain. I think it's going to be communication, but not only for design and production team, but also with supplier and customer. So, the big line.
Everything around analytics is going to be central. That's clear. Then the fact to be able to share information in real time between design, merchandising, and production is also something that's going to be essential. And then I think there is a third component, is the industrial side, where we are moving to the Internet of Things. So I think it's the 3 points combined together. And all the new development in technology around the cloud and the big data are going to help a lot for this.